The Young and the Restless spoilers Saturday's full episodes March 1, 2025. Damian had long struggled under the weight of a profound and painful history. A history that had almost driven him to sever the ties that bound him to the one person he had ever truly loved, his mother, Amy. For years, the two had navigated a tumultuous path, marred by abandonment, betrayal, and the relentless specter of loss. Yet, against all odds, there had come a moment of reconciliation, a moment when Damian, with all his heart, forgave his mother, allowing the fragile threads of love to stitch together the scars of the past. The reconciliation had brought hope, promising a future in which they could finally heal together, embrace one another, and forge a bond stronger than any wound inflicted by years of neglect. However, even as the initial warmth of reconciliation filled the spaces between them, an underlying anxiety had never quite left Damian's heart. For him, the threat of loss was a constant, gnawing presence. The relentless fear that Amy might die from cancer, an illness that had loomed over their lives like a dark, ever-present cloud, haunted him day and night. Every cough, every ache, every silent moment of vulnerability in his mother was a reminder of the fragility of life, and the unbearable thought of losing her was a torment he could scarcely endure. In his mind, cancer was not merely a disease, it was an ever-looming specter, ready to snatch away the only person who had ever truly mattered to him. This pervasive dread had driven him to the brink, fueling his anger and despair as he grappled with the memories of a past steeped in abandonment and hurt. For Damian, the pain was twofold. On one hand, he had endured years of abandonment, a bitter reminder of times when he felt utterly forsaken. His anger had been as much a shield as it was a weapon, a means to protect himself from the anguish of being left behind once again. Yet, on the other hand, the constant fear for Amy's well-being had become an emotional quagmire, trapping him in a cycle of dread and vigilance. Every day was a precarious balance between hope and despair, between the promise of a future filled with reconciliation and the terror of an irreversible loss. Then, in a twist that shattered the delicate balance of his fragile world, Damian stumbled upon a secret that threatened to undo everything he had painstakingly rebuilt. Through a series of unexpected revelations, he discovered that the cancer which had been the cornerstone of his fears was nothing more than a ruse, a cruel deception. Amy, the woman he had dedicated his heart to protecting, was not afflicted by the relentless disease. In truth, she had never been sick at all. The entire narrative of illness had been fabricated, a carefully orchestrated lie meant to ensnare his empathy, to bind him closer to her through the manipulation of his love and his fears. The discovery was a double-edged sword. On one hand, Damian felt an undeniable relief, a liberation from the relentless terror of losing his mother to an illness that, as it turned out, had never existed. He could finally exhale, knowing that the grim specter of cancer was no longer a looming possibility. His heart, battered by years of anguish, could now entertain the possibility of a life where Amy would remain by his side, healthy and whole. Yet, on the other hand, this revelation cut him deeply, inflicting wounds far more grievous than any physical ailment. The realization that he had been manipulated, that the tender threads of his love and compassion had been exploited for deceit, filled him with a searing blend of sorrow and betrayal. In that devastating moment of truth, the world seemed to shift. The facade of maternal love, once believed to be a sanctuary, now revealed itself as a labyrinth of lies. The balance between joy and despair teetered on a knife's edge. Damian's inner turmoil became a cacophony of conflicting emotions, a bittersweet blend of gratitude for the reprieve from the shadow of cancer and a profound sorrow for the betrayal that had undermined every genuine effort at reconciliation. It was a cruel paradox, a situation where the very foundation of their renewed bond was built on deception. Determined not to allow himself to be further deceived, Damian's resilient spirit surged forth. Known for his strength, his unwavering resolve in the face of adversity, he refused to be portrayed as a fool, a pawn in a game of emotional manipulation. With a fierce intensity that belied the pain churning within him, he confronted Amy. The confrontation was raw and unfiltered, a torrent of emotions unleashed in a moment of bitter reckoning. "Mother, you liar," he screamed, the words echoing through the quiet space between them. His voice, filled with a mixture of anguish and righteous anger, tore through the remnants of their tentative reconciliation. Amy, caught off guard by the force of his betrayal-induced outburst, could only stand in stunned silence. The hurt in her eyes was met with the fury of a son who had finally realized that their attempts at reconciliation were marred by a deception too deep to be ignored. In that instant, the fragile bridge they had so desperately been rebuilding began to crumble, each lie a chisel striking at the foundation of trust. The very opportunity they had fought so hard to reclaim, a future where past wounds could be healed, was now slipping away, shattered by the weight of Amy's calculated deceit. Nate, an observer caught in the turbulent crossfire of this family drama, could do nothing but watch as the carefully crafted plans for forgiveness and unity dissolved into chaos. His attempts at mediating and restoring balance had already fallen short, rendered futile by the enormity of the betrayal. The narrative of their reconciliation, once a beacon of hope in a stormy sea of pain, now lay in ruins, a casualty of lies that extended far beyond the physical realm of illness. For Damian, the road ahead was now more treacherous than ever. His heart, once buoyed by the promise of a renewed bond, now bore the scars of both liberation and treachery. The revelation had left him caught between two stark realities: the relief that his mother was not terminally ill, and the crushing disappointment that her love had been tainted by manipulation. The anguish was indescribable, a bittersweet concoction of hope and despair that left him questioning everything he had believed about love, sacrifice, and the true meaning of reconciliation. Yet, in the depths of his despair, there flickered a stubborn ember of resolve. Damian was not one to be defeated by the deceit of those he loved. Even as the echoes of his anguished cries reverberated through the silence that followed, he vowed not to let himself be reduced to the status of a victim. He would confront the betrayal head-on, armed with the knowledge that the truth, no matter how painful, was better than living a lie. His inner strength, honed through years of hardship and loss, would guide him through the murky aftermath of deception. In the ensuing days, the atmosphere between mother and son remained charged with unresolved tension. Every conversation, every shared glance, was laden with the unspoken acknowledgement of the rift that had been forged by Amy's actions. The opportunity for genuine reconciliation, once within their grasp, now seemed all but lost, the path to forgiveness obscured by the shadows of manipulation. Nate's earlier efforts to mend the frayed bonds had been undermined by a lie that cut deeper than any wound inflicted by time or circumstance. In the grand tapestry of their lives, this episode would serve as a stark reminder that even the strongest bonds could be compromised by deceit. The delicate interplay between love and trust, so easily shattered by a single act of manipulation, underscored a harsh truth: reconciliation is not merely about forgiveness, but also about authenticity. Without truth as its foundation, any attempt at healing is doomed to falter, leaving behind a legacy of mistrust and sorrow. For Damian, the path forward was now one of difficult choices. Would he allow the betrayal to define the remainder of his relationship with his mother? Could he ever rebuild the trust that had been so ruthlessly exploited? These questions haunted him, each one a silent testament to the fragility of human connections. His anger, though a natural response to the betrayal, was tempered by the deep-seated love that still resided within him, a love that had once promised healing and unity but was now marred by the scars of manipulation. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between Damian and Amy lingered like an unyielding storm. Each day brought with it a fresh wave of memories, both sweet and bitter, and the challenge of reconciling the two conflicting realities. For Amy, the consequences of her actions were becoming increasingly apparent. Her plan, designed to secure her son's pity and affection, had backfired in the most devastating way imaginable. Instead of drawing him closer, it had driven an irrevocable wedge between them, a wedge that now threatened to isolate her in a chasm of regret and loneliness. In a world where forgiveness was once seen as the ultimate path to redemption, Damian now found himself at a crossroads. The very act of forgiveness, which had once seemed to promise a future of healing, was now tainted by the harsh light of betrayal. The irony was bitter: the act of forgiving, meant to bridge the gap between a mother and her son, had instead become the catalyst for a new, deeper divide. Yet, even in the midst of such profound despair, there remained a glimmer of hope. A fragile possibility that, with time and sincere effort, true reconciliation could be rebuilt on a foundation of honesty. Damian, though wounded and wary, was not ready to abandon the possibility of repairing the bond that had once meant everything to him. His heart, though scarred, still harbored the capacity for forgiveness, a capacity that could one day transform pain into understanding, if only the truth could be embraced without the distortions of manipulation. Ultimately, the journey ahead was one that neither Damian nor Amy could navigate easily. The path to redemption would require more than mere apologies or fleeting gestures of remorse. It would demand a complete dismantling of the deceptive constructs that had once held them captive. Both would have to confront the painful realities of their past, accept the full weight of their actions, and commit themselves to a future built on the unwavering pillars of truth and mutual respect. For Damian, the revelation was both a blessing and a curse, a liberation from the fear of losing his mother to an illness that was never real, and a crushing blow that exposed the vulnerability of his deepest affections. The duality of his emotions, joy intertwined with sorrow, became a constant reminder that love, in its purest form, is as delicate as it is powerful. It is built on trust and honesty, and when these foundations are shaken, even the strongest heart can falter. In the end, the tragedy of their story was not simply the betrayal itself, but the loss of innocence that accompanied it. It was a poignant lesson in the dangers of manipulation and the high cost of exploiting someone's love. As Damian stood at the crossroads of forgiveness and indignation, his future, and that of his once beloved mother, remained uncertain. The wounds might never fully heal, and the scars would serve as lasting reminders of a bond that was both unbreakable and irreparably tarnished by deceit. And so, in the quiet aftermath of a revelation that had shattered every illusion of a perfect reconciliation, Damian resolved to never again allow himself to be blinded by falsehoods. With each passing day, he would strive to rebuild his life on the firm, unyielding ground of truth, even if it meant facing the painful reality that some wounds, once inflicted, leave marks that can never be entirely erased. Amy's voice trembled as she tried once more to reach out to Damian. "I'm so sorry, my son," she pleaded, her eyes glistening with remorse. Yet, for Damian, wounded and weary, the words fell flat. They were echoes of regret that, no matter how heartfelt they might have been meant to be, carried no weight against the mountain of betrayal and deception he had endured. Every apology Amy uttered felt empty, a hollow attempt to mend a bond that had been so deeply fractured. To Damian, the words were meaningless, mere sounds that could never bridge the painful chasm that now separated him from the mother he once trusted. In the midst of his inner turmoil, a familiar figure returned to his side, Lily, whose gentle presence had always been a source of comfort. With careful steps and a heart full of understanding, she approached Damian, her eyes soft with empathy. Lily knew the treacherous terrain of lost trust all too well, for as a mother herself, she had weathered storms of heartache and disappointment. In her calm, measured tone, she began to explain many things that Damian had not yet understood. She spoke of the complexities of the human heart, of the secret burdens that sometimes lead even those who love us most to make desperate, misguided choices. "Damian," Lily said, her voice steady and filled with a maternal kindness, "I understand that what happened with Amy has left you feeling betrayed and hurt. But sometimes, people carry their own reasons, a tangled web of pain, regret, and unmet needs that drive them to act in ways we cannot immediately comprehend. I know it's hard, but I also believe that beneath her mistakes, there are reasons that you might one day understand." She paused, letting the quiet settle around them before continuing, "Don't let your anger rob you of the chance to reconcile with your mother. Yes, she hurt you, but remember, forgiveness is not about forgetting, it's about finding peace within yourself and giving both of you a chance to heal." As Lily's words sank in, Damian felt a tumult of conflicting emotions. The raw sting of betrayal battled with the yearning for the closeness he once shared with his mother. In that delicate moment, as if to embody the reconciliation that seemed so elusive, Lily and Damian embraced. The hug was more than a gesture, it was a silent promise that no matter how deep the wounds might be, the possibility of healing still flickered in the darkness. Lily held him close, feeling the quiet shudders of his despair as he began to cry like a child, a sound so raw and vulnerable it pained her deeply. Tears streamed down Damian's face, each one a testament to the burden of secrets, lies, and unhealed scars. For Lily, watching him break down was both heartbreaking and a call to action. She gently stroked his hair, whispering, "I know you're hurting, but please don't lose hope. I believe that one day you'll understand all of this, and you'll find it in your heart to forgive your mother." Her voice, soft and resolute, was filled with the strength of someone who had endured her own trials and had learned that forgiveness, though never easy, was a step toward reclaiming one's inner peace. In the silence that followed, as they stood together in that fragile moment of reconciliation, the complexities of their situation unfolded. Damian's pain was a blend of relief and sorrow, relief that, in some ways, he was finally letting go of the relentless anger, and sorrow that the path to healing was strewn with the remnants of trust that had long been betrayed. Lily's compassionate presence served as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there could be a way forward, one that might eventually lead to understanding and, perhaps, forgiveness. Lily continued, her tone gentle yet earnest, "Sometimes, we all wear masks, masks that hide our true selves, our fears, and our imperfections." Amy's actions, as misguided as they were, came from a place of her own pain and a desperate need to hold on to something, even if it meant manipulating those who cared for her. "I'm not saying what she did was right, but there might be more beneath the surface that you could come to understand with time." She reached out, her hand lingering on Damian's, offering a tangible connection to the hope of mending what had been broken. "Take this time, let your heart soften, and allow yourself to consider that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a strength that can set you free." For a long moment, silence reigned between them, filled only by the quiet sound of Damian's steadying breaths. The weight of Lily's words began to sink into him, not erasing the pain but offering a path, a difficult, winding road, to eventual understanding. The opportunity for reconciliation with his mother, though tarnished by her previous actions, was not entirely lost. It was a chance for a new beginning, one that required courage and the willingness to look beyond the present hurt. Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she continued, "Remember, forgiveness does not mean you accept or condone what happened. It means you are choosing to let go of the anger that chains you to the past, so you can move forward. I know it seems impossible now, and you may never fully understand why she did what she did, but holding on to this pain will only keep you from living the life you deserve." Her words were a tender plea for Damian to consider the possibility that, in forgiving, he might finally reclaim the parts of himself that had been lost in the shadows of betrayal. As the embrace lingered, Damian's emotions began to shift, albeit slowly. The tears that once flowed uncontrollably began to subside, replaced by a tentative calm, a fragile peace born of understanding and the possibility of forgiveness. Lily's unwavering support was a lifeline in that storm of despair, guiding him to see that while Amy's apologies might have seemed empty, they were only one part of a much larger, more complex story. The chance for true reconciliation, however distant it might appear now, was still within reach if he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of healing. Yet, even as hope flickered within him, a storm of doubt and lingering hurt loomed on the horizon. Damian knew that the journey to forgiveness would be fraught with setbacks and moments of intense pain. The wounds inflicted by deceit and manipulation would not mend overnight, and the path forward was uncertain. But in that embrace with Lily, there was a promise, a fragile yet potent promise, that the future could hold a place where understanding triumphed over betrayal, and where the bond between a mother and her son, however wounded, might one day be restored. In the quiet aftermath of that heartfelt moment, as they slowly released their embrace, Lily whispered one last time, "Please, don't give up on your mother just yet. Give yourself the chance to understand, to feel, and to heal. I know it hurts now, but time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges of our hearts." Her words were a final, gentle plea, a reminder that even amidst the ruins of past deceit, the seeds of forgiveness, once sown, might eventually blossom into a renewed, if cautious, love. And so, as the day slowly turned to dusk, with the fading light casting long shadows on the path ahead, Damian stood at the crossroads of his emotions. The promise of reconciliation with his mother lay ahead, shrouded in uncertainty and the echoes of betrayal, yet illuminated by the tender hope that Lily had rekindled within him. It was a journey he knew he must embark upon, not to forget the past, but to forge a future where healing, understanding, and ultimately forgiveness might prevail, allowing both him and his mother to reclaim the bond that had once defined their lives.